Yo, today we got some for the girlies again, and we got how Dan was always Gossip Girl. If this is going to talk about how Dan made a good Gossip Girl, allegedly, if I did watch the show, I would just think it's bad writing personally, because there's no indication to us as the audience that he was even Gossip Girl besides the fact that he wrote a book. But it's like, that could have just been his thing because he was there the whole time. But yeah, let's just see what's up.
It's been almost 12 years since the final episode of the CW's hit TV series Gossip Girl premiered. At the time, I was in the trenches of middle school, a little younger than the show's target demographic. But that didn't stop me or any of the other 13-year-old girls in my grade from tuning in. We had all binge-watched the show on Netflix and
what if I was 19 a year ago and I just saw 18 2 years ago and I watched it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not it.
Got the first 9 episodes of the final season
girls
on demand or recorded them without our parents' permission and couldn't wait to see how the show would wrap up. It's not a stretch to say that I was hooked. Gossip Girl had everything a young me wanted from a TV show. It was idealistic New York living with beautiful clothes, beautiful people, and non-stop romantic drama. I got my popcorn ready and put on some lip gloss so I could feel a little bit more part of the Upper East Side world as I sat down to watch the finale.
Again, it's not girl. It might be targeted towards girls, but man, it's good TV.
Finale. It was perfect. Everything ended exactly how I was hoping.
I mean, maybe because I was 19 at the time, but they really rushed the last couple episodes. Chuck never had to go to jail for, I'm saying, offing his dad. Apparently, I'm talking as in allegedly. I watched the show. I didn't watch the show, but just allegedly, right? Chuck didn't go to jail for letting his dad fall off a building. These two ended up together. Don't know why. What? Oh, her real dad ended up with her mom, even though he manipulated a whole bunch of events to happen and no one noticed. I thought, like, that would be a plot line. Allegedly, if I watched the show, obviously. But, like, it seemed rushed.
And married Serena, Chuck married Blair, Jenny was redeemed, and Bart was defeated. I had no complaints on the show's ending. Even the reveal that the anonymous scandal blogger herself was lonely boy Dan Humphrey the whole time. At 13, I can only assume that I wasn't analyzing the plausibility or narrative merit that this choice had in any substantive way. The explanation the show presented to me made sense, so I went on with my life. In the days following the finale, Facebook and Twitter were swarmed with articles about how horrible the decision to make Dan Gossip Girl was.
Yeah.
A take that is still the leading opinion of today, and one that is still actively being debated online. The thing is, I disagree. After 11 years, many debates with friends, and numerous rewatches of the series, I still hold the same opinion I had then today. Dan being Gossip Girl is the best ending for the show, and I'm going to prove.
I'm just gonna let her talk because I have my opinion. From what I remember from the alternate timeline, I did watch this show. It's kind of like, it seemed rushed. It, like, him and Regina, if that's her name, the one with the black hair, were like the time when they were writing the book and hacked the Gossip Girl. That should have been more like obvious to us, at least, or to at least somebody. Like, Regina's husband was able to hack, you know what I'm saying, his computer. Like, it said he's Gossip Girl. They were able to hack them, but couldn't find an 18-year-old who wanted to, and like, they couldn't track down an 18-year-old who wanted to be a writer's address. You understand what I'm saying? It's like,
that not only does Dan being Gossip Girl make sense, but that there is no other ending possible that would have been as satisfying.
I'm gonna keep it a buck. The only other ending I would have accepted is Gossip Girl just gotta disappear into nothingness. Like just no reveal, no nothing. That would have been better, in my opinion.
Dan began his relationship with Manhattan's Elite in 2005 when he transferred to St. Jude for his freshman year, going unnoticed and friendless for his first few months at school. On October 8th, 2005, Dan was accidentally invited to a party hosted by Blair for a girl named Katie. Dan meets a drunk Serena, they share a brief conversation, and Dan immediately falls for her. Sometime shortly after their meeting, Gossip Girl makes her first blast. It was about Serena's white dress getting wet and becoming see-through on a ninth grade class trip. Dan wanted to write his way into the world of the Upper East Side, and Serena was his muse. Quickly after his first post, Gossip Girl blows up and becomes an unstoppable monster, with everyone sending in tips and reading blasts. In their sophomore year, Serena gets drunk on Thanksgiving and almost gets hit by a car, but is saved by a still unknown Dan. Around December of 2006 is the Shepard wedding and the night of Pete Fairman's death. Serena leaves town to attend boarding school for her second semester of sophomore year. A few days before junior year starts, Serena returns and the events of season 1 and 2 occur before the first failed attempt to unmask Gossip Girl happens on graduation day in 2009. Dan remains the anonymous blogger until he decides to shut down the site for good in season 5, when a blast indirectly leads to Chuck and...
I'm not gonna lie, bro. This part, no, I did watch the show. I'm just gonna keep it a bug. I don't want to keep on saying hypothetically, right? This part, I thought Chuck was done for. I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. And this was, I'm pretty sure this was during his, like, the beginning of his redemption arc, if I remember correctly. Bro, like Chuck was my favorite character. I know it's crazy to say because of what he did in the first 2 seasons, yeah, but like not him then, him after. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I thought Chuck was cooked. God.
Blair getting into a nearly fatal car crash. The site was stolen for a short time by a bored Georgina Sparks until her identity was discovered. Georgina sends the official Gossip Girl letter.
Georgie. But again, she was the hack Gossip Girl, but couldn't find his IP address. You understand what I'm saying? Like, she's smart enough to do that, but she ain't gonna try to find Gossip Girl. Alright, gang.
Laptop to Serena with a note instructing her to take over. Serena runs the blog until the finale of season 5 when the true Gossip Girl is reinstated. Dan operates the blog as usual until he reveals his identity to everyone in the series finale. If I'm going to make you believe that Dan is, and always has been, the perfect Gossip Girl, I have a few rules that must be considered. In order for Dan to be Gossip Girl, a few things must fall into line. Dan is seen throughout the series to have a code of ethics. The morality of his ethics might be a little hazy, but he was always a man of his word, and I think he carries this conviction into his work as Gossip Girl, having a code of ethics when it comes to the content he puts out. I think Dan lived by the rule, if a blast comes through, even if it was about himself, he would post it, no matter the consequences. A common argument against Dan being Gossip Girl is, why would he post something so horrible?
I get the highest identity because he's the one person hanging around all the other people who get, you know what I'm saying, blast that get talked about by Gossip Girl, and he is the only one who doesn't get talked about. Like, even though he's not as rich as everybody else, he's hanging around them, so it's kind of like he should be talked about at least once, but no blast. And the bigger the blast is, the bigger the blast is, it's what you call it. It'd be suspicious. But again, she's not convincing me so far.
About himself. For example, why would he reveal that he and Serena have a half-sibling, or that he slept with his teacher? This conundrum is actually perfectly explained away in the final episode by Dan himself.
Yeah, I overheard 2 girls talking about you in your white dress getting wet. And, one girl thought that you would be a laughingstock, you know, and then everyone would be talking about you. But then her friend said, that's the point. You're no one until you're talked about.
Dan believed to his core that as long as people were talking about him, it really didn't matter what they were saying. A philosophy the show repeatedly subscribes to. In the world of Manhattan's elite, it doesn't really matter what you do, as long as the public perception is achieving what you want. In Dan's case, the always invisible boy from Brooklyn wanted to be noticed, wanted to be inside, no matter the reason or the consequences. Also, Dan is clearly okay with sabotaging himself. In the final season, he publishes a scathing chapter on Serena, despite saying moments prior to sending it out, there is no winning without Serena. Dan believed that he had to prove he was finally on the inside. And to be on the inside, the others will always forgive your actions.
What I did is no worse than what all your friends do to each other every day. You try to ruin each other, and then you sit down for Thanksgiving, and you call yourselves family.
You were supposed to be different.
So, from what I'm understanding, he made a good Gossip Girl because he was lame and wanted to be part of.
I used to be. Got me nowhere. So now I'm the same.
People also struggle to see Dan as Gossip Girl because he spends the entirety of the first couple of seasons vocally despising the lifestyle of the Upper East Side. But we know from a chat that he had with Vanessa at the end of season 4 that this disdain was mostly a facade. Vanessa goes to Dan's loft and finds the first draft of his book, Inside, and reads it. She calls Dan, and he tells her that he's been working on the book on and off for 5 years. She confronts him, saying,
I always thought Serena was the reason you fell into the Upper East Side, but it was more than that.
Vanessa, seriously, this is none of your business.
You always wanted in. Maybe more than Jenny.
If you believe that Dan would write Inside over the first 4 seasons, then you can believe that he would be Gossip Girl. The other big issue fans have with Dan being Gossip Girl are all the moments we see him alone, reacting to a new blast, and looking shocked at the information.
Wait, did they have like scheduled postings in 2007, 2008? Yeah, I'm saying this is one of the problems I had too, because when you really think about it, he was by himself looking like Gossip Girl posted. No one is around, so you feel me? See that he looked surprised, so he just did it for no reason, or just unless was Jenny a part of it too?
For this, we would have to reframe the timeline of the episodes a little bit. The times we see Dan looking surprised at a Gossip Girl post aren't actually him looking at the post, but him looking surprised at the original tip coming through. This might take a little stretching of the imagination, but this issue would also disqualify most of the characters from being Gossip Girl, all of whom have been seen looking shocked at a new blast coming through.
So she's trying to justify it with timeline and camera tricks. I mean, if the creator of the show came out and said this, then sure, I'll believe it. But if we're just going off speculation, I'm still saying bad writing. They just needed to wrap the series up, and Dan just seemed just all right.
I know what you're thinking. What about those times when Dan is in a room with everyone when a new blast comes through? Well, this is pretty easy to explain away with the technology of the time. He had all the blasts on a timer to be posted at specific moments, so he can be in the room while still sending the blast. My final explanation for these time inconsistencies is Jenny. Because Jenny has known Dan was Gossip Girl for the majority of the show, I don't think it would be a stretch for him to ask for her assistance in the occasional posting to the site, especially if he is in the trenches of the scandal at hand. The times where Dan is reacting to a post could be times where Jenny posted the tip on his behalf. By the time we, as viewers, are introduced to the world of Manhattan's elite in the pilot, Gossip Girl is already an established and trusted source of information. Elite in the pilot. Gossip Girl is...
Phones are doing all this back in the day. What happened? How come they couldn't keep that Man, bro, her phone just popped up and that's pretty cool.
Already an established and trusted source of information to the kids of Constance and St. Jude. The site almost runs itself. A tip and photo evidence come in, Dan reads it to ensure it's worthy of a post, and writes a quick and witty remark. He isn't out searching for tips. All the gossip comes straight to him. He just needs to click post. In the graduation episode, Gossip Girl said it herself. Without everyone sending in tips, she would be nothing.
You wanted to meet Gossip Girl? Well, look around. You just did. I'm nothing without you.
It makes sense narratively for Dan to be Gossip Girl. He is not only smart enough and a skilled enough writer to keep the site up, running, and continuously successful, but he is the only character that had a consistent motive strong enough to take such extreme actions. People have been theorizing online who Gossip Girl could be from the show's premiere, and with some fans unhappy with the answer the finale gave, there are still debates online as to who should have been Gossip Girl. Executive producer
Hold on, let me get in my bag real quick. Who? Georgina would have made a good Gossip Girl, but too obvious. She likes to let people know that she's the one causing chaos. You know what I'm saying? Blair, nah, I don't see it. Serena, she wasn't there for half the time, so couldn't be her. Buddy was in the mental institute, so couldn't get. Yeah, he was too young at the time. Jenny, again, too young at the time to care. I'm still saying that Gossip Girl should have never been revealed.
Joshua Sanford explains that Eric was intended to be Gossip Girl up until season 2, when the New York Post leaked the information, causing the writers to shift gears into Nate's direction for a time. In contrast, fellow executives
Nate. Unless he was just playing dumb the whole time. Nah, I don't see that. Because he got the blast of Serena being back when he was about to, you know what I'm saying, go crazy with Blair. So, like, his surprise would have been, like, genuine when he heard that she's back, unless he's just so gangster. Like, even when he's at, like, 60% breakness, he can still, like, keep his act going.
executive producer, Stephanie Savage, told E! News that Dan was always intended to be Gossip Girl. We never really entertained any other ideas of who Gossip Girl was. It was whether we were going to reveal it. Interestingly, in the pilot episode, test audiences thought that Dan was Gossip Girl. It's when he's seen on his computer looking at Gossip Girl. The way it was edited, that he was typing as the voice was coming up, people thought they were being told that he was Gossip Girl. So we actually had to re-edit that sequence. The other top contenders to be the brains behind the blog that are supported by fans are Dorota, Eric, and Nate. I personally take
Dorota. I mean, if they flesh it out enough, I can see it, but again, I'm more of the mind frame of just don't reveal it. You know what I'm saying? Just let it be what it is.
Take issue with any of these characters being Gossip Girl, and believe that no other character fits the bill as well as Dan does. First, let's talk about Dorota and Eric. Both are side characters that do not appear regularly throughout the show, making the argument that they are Gossip Girl harder to disprove, because we don't see what they're doing as consistently as the main cast. However, I would argue that making them, or any side character, the big bad, would feel a little cheap and unsatisfying. In my view, the only characters worthy of being Gossip Girl are our 7 leads: Serena, Blair, Dan, Chuck, Nate, Jenny, or Vanessa. Even if you disagree, Eric and Dorota are still not good choices. Eric and Dorota are shown time and time again to be more kind, loyal,
Yeah, they're like the support characters. You know what I'm saying? If they were Gossip Girl, it would be surprising. Yeah, they would have to. The writers would have to just crack their knuckles and just get hooking with their reasoning.
Loyal, thoughtful, and trustworthy than any of our leads. To be Gossip Girl would ruin their likability and would erase all the moral fiber that we have been shown that they have. Eric loved his sister and never wanted her to be involved in drama, which is the exact opposite motive to being Gossip Girl. Dorota is a full-time mother and a loyal employee to Blair's family. Making her Gossip Girl is the equivalent to Eloise believing one of the maids to be Lady Whistledown in Bridgerton.
You believe a servant would ever have the time to be Lady Whistledown with all the work we must do?
But like I haven't seen Bridgerton, but it's back in the old days. They would have to like write for real and then mail it to the mail guy. What? Dorota has 8 hours for herself, pretty much, because Blair's at school. She, you know what I'm saying, starts Gossip Girl. Hips start coming in. Ain't like she said, it ain't nothing but copy and paste in post. Like, if you really think about it, it's possible.
To think she would have the time to be Gossip Girl undervalues the hard work and energy it takes for an immigrant mother to work in New York City. Nate is slightly harder to disregard, but like Eric and Dorota, the personality profile of Nate doesn't fit the bill for being an anonymous mastermind blogger. Most obviously, Nate has never been known for cunning or smarts. 2 requirements for the job. The main argument in favor of Nate being Gossip Girl is the reveal that he had never sent in a tip in season 5. I understand the logic here. I also thought that was what the show was insinuating on my first watch. But what that scene actually shows is way more impactful when looked.
Yeah, he's not trying to be like, oh, rest y'all being on gossip, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, he may bang minors, but he ain't gonna gossip.
Looking at Nate's character. Nate never having sent in a tip means that he never wanted to harm his friends, and that he meant it when he said in season 1 that he didn't want to be part of the established world that was offered to him on a silver platter. As for the other main 6, it is safe to say that Serena, Blair, and Chuck were never really in the running to be Gossip Girl beyond season 2. None of these characters have an appropriate motive to keep up such a long-lasting scheme. Jenny would have been too young and out of the loop going to school in Brooklyn to have started the blog. Vanessa had the brains and the disdain for the rich to possibly.
But how did she get the info?
Use the site as a tool of destruction, but I think her transition into knowing and caring about the Upper East Side comes as the show progresses, whereas Jenny and Dan had the interest from the get-go. I'm not going to try and explain away every plot hole that Dan being Gossip Girl creates. That would end up being a very long and convoluted video. The truth is that plot holes and minor canonical mistakes are found in even the most perfectly crafted long-form stories. TV shows or book series that span across many years are going to suffer from the occasional plot hole. Inconsistencies are a symptom of the genre, but I don't think they are worth throwing the whole ending out to rectify. We shouldn't value perfect continuity above the character development and messaging of the work.
Bro, I just wanted more evidence, you know what I'm saying? Like, what's the point of making him a Gossip Girl if he's gonna write a book about everything? Like, you feel me? Well, unless, like, the whole part about him only being, like, what's the word? Only being valued if he's talked about, and since he's not rich, he wouldn't be able to, you know what I'm saying, get to where he wants to be an insider to write the book, because Gossip Girl wouldn't really care about him unless he bangs Serena. I ain't gonna lie, bro. She didn't convince me this whole video.
At the end of the day, Dan being Gossip Girl serves the story and his character motivations the best.
I invited you into my home, Dan, and my world, and then you just humiliate me.
That is the issue. It's my world.
Oh, come on.
Mm.
It's a figure of speech.
No, it has always been your world, and you've never let me forget it. I've always been a visitor. The poor kid from...
I actually like Dan. Like, you know what I'm saying? Well, serious, cool guy. You know what I'm saying? Now, even when he wrote his book and didn't tell anybody, I was like, he changed the names. Like, how was the random the girl reading this supposed to know who what Nate did, for example, but his name was like Jack in the book. You feel what I'm saying? But yeah, that's kind of a weird thing to, you know what I'm saying? Weird thing to be stuck on about, because I'm in my own world, you're in your own world. We're all in our own worlds. And when you get into a relationship, a friendship, you're inviting people into your world. Unless you are like not even married, like unless you are conjoined twins, it's still your world when you talk about it.
From Brooklyn, who you've never seen as an equal to you.
Okay, so this is your payback.
A good finale aims to solve each character's original problem. For example, Nate's original problem is that he felt everything in his life had been decided for him, but he wanted to find his own path, separating himself from the expectations placed upon him by his family. And by the end of the show, Nate had created a successful business unattached to the Vanderbilt family legacy, fulfilling his season 1 goals. Dan being Gossip Girl aids in resolving his original problem of being the overlooked and unappreciated outsider. When looking at Dan's motivations, personality, and deep understanding of how people born into the extreme wealth of the Upper East Side think and operate, him being Gossip Girl doesn't feel like a stretch. The constant alluding to Fitzgerald and Truman Capote in the series are not errors, with Dan's story often mirroring the plot points of The Great Gatsby, and his motives being very similar to Capote's ambitions. Dan was following in the footsteps of his outsider literary predecessors.
But that gave me the idea. If I wasn't born into this world, maybe I could write myself into it.
The final reveal also plays to the show's biggest theme, that secrets, gossip, status, and wealth are all corrupting forces. But they are also the real powers in the world of the Upper East Side, and without them, a person will never be an insider.
Hold on one sec. I'm just gonna talk about it. I mean, I can understand it from a real in-depth writer perspective of if he became Gossip Girl, like this almighty omnipotent power. I'm gonna do my bag today. Omnipotent He's all-seeing force in the world of the rich. He could, you know what I'm saying, like write himself in, as she was saying. But me personally, I just like it to be insinuated, and when the reveal happened, it's like, oh, that's why that happened. That's how this connects. But the show didn't really give me that, because I'm not sure if I'm explaining myself correctly, but he was writing his book, which was technically Gossip Girl the whole time. So it's kind of like, what was the point, in the sense of he waited until Serena came back to write himself in the story. I'm just gonna say it didn't make sense to me. I'm not sure how to explain it for real, but if you disagree or agree with what she said or what I said, let me know in the comments, and see you next time.